But anyway, talking about prudent things, Kyle. We're talking about the Bible, and I know Tucker isn't saved, so
damn it,
hopefully
Tucker.
this compels him. So today I'm going to tell the story of Samson.
My mom loves this
Samson
segment.
is an Old Testament figure. And most people think, I know Samson, can't cut your hair, gets with Delilah. Nay. They don't know the whole story of Samson. And
strong man.
It's longer, but there aren't necessarily more lessons. You got to look for them. So it begins in the prequel stage of Samson, going to his parents. So as with many things for the Jews, they did something that pissed God off, and God said, fuck you, you're going out of my presence again, go be slaves to some other people. And so they're some time into that, all the Israelites and Jews are really upset and just waiting for that next judge or prophet to come down and pull them out of this muck. And so one day, this guy named, the fuck was his name? Manoah, we're going to call him Mano from now on for short. Mano and his wife were just a random poor couple of Jews, very poor Israelites, and one day an angel came down in angel form to Manoah's wife and said, hey, you're about to give birth to someone who's going to totally change the direction of this tribe. And she's like, oh, that's awesome. And he says, yeah, it is. Now, all you got to do is make sure you don't smoke, don't drink, don't eat any grapes, nothing fermented, no mixed fabrics. You're a Jew, you know the rules. She goes, yeah, I know. I got it all planned out. Just don't do any of that, and then you'll have a son. He's going to do some fantastic things. Angel poofs away. She goes back to her husband, Mano, and is like, you will not believe what happened. And I'm going to read in the NIV Bible, the New International Version. This is exactly what she says, and I'm going to say it in Trump's voice because it makes sense. A man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God. Very awesome. That's what she said in the Bible. She goes up, says it was very awesome, and the husband goes, oh my God, so all you got to do is not drink or smoke or anything, and then this kid's going to come out good? She goes, yeah. He goes, all right, well, what do we do afterward? When the kid's here, how do we raise him then? She goes, oh, I didn't ask him that. Shit. Should we call him back? It's like an angel. You can't call him back. And so he goes to the temple, prays, and goes, please send someone else here and tell us how to raise the kid. We get it. Don't make a little fetal alcohol syndrome baby. But after he's born, how do we make sure he becomes a good dude and does all the things you want? And so a few days later, a man, regular old-looking man, really an angel, comes down the road, talks to Mano, goes, hey, the Lord pushed me to come to you and tell you that all you have to do for your child is make sure that a razor never touches his head or any part of his body. A razor is in shaving, removing hair. And also make sure that your wife abides by all those rules I said before. And he was like, okay, yeah, it's not that helpful, but you are just a guy. You're not an angel, so I guess this is how God wants me to figure it out. Okay, whatever. He doesn't know this guy's an angel. He goes, well, at the very least, let me be hospitable. Stay with me for dinner. And the angel, who's not letting on, goes, no, I don't want to stay for dinner. He goes, I insist. You must stay for dinner. And the angel goes, if you're going to, or I have a goat. We'll kill the goat and we'll eat it together. He goes, I'm not going to stay for dinner, but if I do stay, as you're asking me, take that goat and sacrifice it to the Lord. And Mano is like, oh yeah, like this goat, my only goat. You want me to burn my own? Do you look around? We don't have a lot of goats. We've got one goat. This is our food for the next month.
Can't be fucking our goats to death.
Yeah, no, we have one goat. I was planning on eating this for a while, but yeah, I guess I'll just burn it. I'll just burn it for God. Because you're telling me to. Have you looked around my house? Have you looked around my one-bedroom, dirt floor, thatched roof house? Do you smell salmon in here? We don't have any fish. That's my wife's Bronze Age pussy you're smelling. It's horrible in here. We have nothing to eat, and you're asking me to sacrifice this goat and burn it to you. And so he goes, he burns the goat begrudgingly, and he also burns some grain with it because the Lord is notorious for needing a side. And, after all that is burned, the guy just leaves. They're hungry. And 9 months later, out pops happy Samson, ready to take on the world. And as with most Bible stories, it doesn't talk about the childhood. It goes straight to the adulthood of the character. So now we're early 20s, pussy slaying Samson. He's got long hair like a rock star. And so he's
Fabio.
He's perfect. He's Fabio. Picture him like that. A little more matted and nasty. And a beard, because you can't shave anywhere. And so he is
no manscaping.
Yeah, and so he is.
Oh God.
He's trolling around this city of Timnah looking for Strange, and he comes across this lady And he's totally infatuated with her. He fucking loves her. And so he goes back, but she's a Philistine. That's the problem. She's not Jewish. She's a Philistine. And they are very much in competition with each other right now, these two tribes. And the Philistines are much stronger and larger. And so it's not something you want to tango with. And so he goes back to his family and he goes, hey, I found this woman. I want her as my wife. So I need you to go there and get her for me. Because that was back when women were treated appropriately as property instead of like having to pretend to care about what they say. And so now they go, the dad goes, oy vey, son, you're going to go and find someone who's not Jewish? My goodness. No, there's plenty of good women right around here. Look at Rachel. And he goes, Rachel, she looks like a fucking sundial with that schnoz. No, I'm not going for Rachel. I'm going for that Philistine woman, that sexy bitch right over there. And so the dad goes, okay, yeah, I'll back that. He goes back to the family on the way. Goes back to the woman's family he's interested in order to relay to her that, all right, wedding's on. And on the way, he's by himself. A lion leaps out of the brush, comes to attack him. The Lord imbues him with, that strength that he has from his hair, and he tears the lion apart, like the way you would a goat was the example in the Bible, which apparently is like, you ready for goat? Like, no. And so he tore the lion apart, left it there, and miraculously, like, if I killed a lion, that would be in my Tinder bio, that would be in my Twitter bio, that would be my permanent Facebook status, it would be on my resume. Everyone would know. He didn't tell anyone. And it was weird because he was a braggadocious fella. And he continues on, tells his woman, hey, wedding's on, I got to go back to my people, grab my posse, my friend's family, and then we'll meet you back here, have the whole shindig. So he heads back, grabs his family, and as they're moving back towards the wedding party, which is they're going to the woman's place in the Philistinian territory, I don't know what it would be called. And on the way back, they see that same lion carcass. And the lion carcass is decomposed a bit. And there are bees swarming all around it. And so Samson, in what it can only be described as an insane person's maneuver, goes over to the hollowed out carcass of this lion where the bees are, dips his hands into the carcass, and retrieves 2 big old handfuls of honey. And so the rest of the walk there, he's eating honey out of his hands on the way to his own wedding. And to set the stage, this is a man who lives in the year 1, who has never showered. He has never been allowed to cut a hair from his head, and he's eating honey out of his hands on the way to his wedding. There's never been a stickier human being in history than Samson on this walk. It's like, it's not bad enough that you have, I lived 500 years before Christ, shits every day. You're going to eat 2 handfuls of honey on the way to your wedding? You goddamn maniac. And so he eats his honey. It's disgusting and sticky by the time he gets there. They get there, though, and it goes off without a hitch for the most part. Like, Samson's dad was, like, pissed because he was like, you're going to associate with these uncircumcised folks? But Samson, like, convinced him. He's like, Dad, believe it or not, it never crossed the minds of these savages to bring a sharp stone to the genitals of young boys. It's like, that's horrific. It's terrible. It's like, I'll get over it, And so they get over it, and they have the wedding. It's a nice little occasion. And after the wedding, they're all sitting around in a powwow. And Samson goes to the relatives of his wife, the Philistines, and goes, hey, I'll tell you a riddle. And if you can riddle me that, I'll give you 30 outfits of linen. If you can't figure it out, though, you got to give me 30 outfits of linen. And they're like, seems like a pretty reasonable thing. All right, let's do it. And so he tells the riddle of, and I read it, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Now, obviously, this was him talking about out of the eater, the lion, honey comes, that's sweet, and out of the lion, something strong, something sweet, like that kind of shit. But it's cheating. You can't make a riddle based on an experience that only you know about and then expect people to understand. Like, that's like the self-actualization of a 2-year-old, where you think if you saw something, everybody's seen it. And everybody will get it. Like, that's retardation. So my contention is that he was cheating.
Okay.
He was cheating from the start, is my contention. Samson was. He was giving a riddle in bad faith.
It's like playing peekaboo and covering your own eyes.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Woody, I've got an interesting riddle about my 7th grade birthday party. Now, no one needed the details or the tendrils going out that'll give you hints. Like, it's not fair. And so he gives this riddle, and nobody can figure it out because they weren't there. And so, like, 2 days later, the family of the woman go, hey, you got to get this fucking riddle because I don't know if you've looked around, but we're not exactly running a fucking courtyard Marriott. We don't have linen to hand out. Like, we took this assuming we know the riddle. We're pretty good riddlers, but we don't have any linen. We're going to be humiliated and embarrassed, and we're not really on friendly terms with the rest of their tribe, just this family now. And so she goes, okay, I'll go do it. And so for the next 5 days, the word nag is used in the Bible. She nags and cries and bitches for so many days in a row that eventually Samson on the last day goes, yeah, okay, the answer is the lion. The answer is a lion and honey inside it, okay? Please, oh my God, week one of our marriage. Golly, I should have listened to my parents, you dumb whore. And he's furious. And 20 minutes later, she leaves. 20 minutes later, all the Philistines come back, and they're like, Samson, we figured out your riddle. And he's like, did you? Did you figure out my riddle? What is it? And so they told him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than lion? Which apparently was the 2 questions that aren't a riddle, or the answer to a riddle that was 2 questions that weren't. Nah.
It's Jeopardy.
These ancient people didn't understand what riddles were.
He answered the question. Anyway.
Yeah. And so they give him that, and he goes, cheated. You cheated. I just gave my wife that answer, and she went and gave it to you. And so Samson stood up calmly, and then he murdered 30 people. With his bare hands, he went around the camp, and he murdered 30 people, and then he left, saying, someday I'll get my vengeance. So at this point, Samson is a terrorist at this point. He does not take kindly to those other folks. And so from there,
Samson is Jewish. Home. He killed the terrorists. Correction.
Yeah. He spends some time like mulling his own shit over in the desert or whatever while everybody else goes back. He eventually returns home and goes to his dad. Hey, I want to talk to my wife. He goes, your wife? That Philistine woman who lied to you and you killed 30 of her family members? No, when I was leaving, I said I gave her to someone else. Like, no, that's not your wife anymore. And Samson goes, God, fucking bullshit. Well, then I definitely need to get my vengeance. She's dead to me. And so he does what any sane person would do. He's got to get vengeance on these Philistines. They're stronger. They're more powerful. What do you do? What you do is you go into the woods and you catch 300 foxes. 300 foxes. Have you ever tried to catch one fox? It's fucking impossible. You're not going to catch 300 foxes. It's insanity. And so he catches 300 foxes. And then he does another sane thing. He takes them 2 by 2 and ties their tails together. And then once he has 150 paired off fox pairings, very hard to manage. He puts torches in the night and ties those into the tails and lights them and releases them all over Philistine territory and all of their crops. And so the next morning when they wake up, they're like, there's a lot of burned foxes and no crops left. And there's a torch in all the foxes' tails. And this is very methodically done. A serial killer is in our midst. Is this that terrorist Samson? Is this that terrorist Samson that we're all so scared of all the time with the strength of 10 men and the temperament of a 1-year-old? Like, is this the man? And so they're terrified of Samson because he just destroyed everything. And so the Philistines go back and they go go to the woman that he initially married, the Philistine woman and her father, and they're so mad they just burn them too, probably with the last remaining pair of foxes running around. And they burn those 2 to death. And then I'm trying to remember what happened here. Sorry. It's so in depth.
He couldn't.
Oh yeah, I remember. No. Now, yeah, you couldn't just throw torches.
No, he had to tie.
You didn't want to throw a torch when you could swing 2 foxes around like a madman and hurl them. But and after he did this, after he did all the fox shenanigans, he went and retreated into a cave in the wilderness and just hung out there. And so after that, all the Philistines, like a few thousand of them, are like, "This is horse shit. We are marching to the Jewish camp of Judea." and we're going to make them give us Samson. So they march over there, and they go, where the fuck is Samson? He just tied a bunch of hundreds of foxes together and burned our crops down after killing 30 of us for cheating on a cheat riddle of his. And they go, we don't know where he is. Frankly, we'd be happy if you caught him. He's causing a lot of mischief, and he's not reflecting well. He's terrible PR. We're a very small tribe, and he's causing a lot of mischief out there, and people keep coming up to us. And they go, okay, well, we believe you. We're going to search anyway. They search. They go, all right, we totally believe you, but we're way stronger than you. So while we're here, we're just going to conquer you. And they're like, fuck, we should have seen that coming. And so they got conquered right there too. And so then 1,000 Jews from Judea go to that cave, and they go to Samson, and they go, we got to turn you in. And Samson's like, you couldn't turn me in if you wanted to, but here, how about this? You tie me up, and you bring me back there to those thousands of guys, and you say, we got him. We got the guy for you. He's right here. And then I'll burst out of there. And then they go, yo, dude, that's an incredible idea. And then like Noah, you can throw him a sword. And Ezekiel, you can throw him a shield. And Samson goes, no, I'll use the jaw of an ass. And then they all go, yeah, whatever you want to do, man. Just remember, like, we're on your team. And he goes, yeah, jaw of an ass. This is a good idea. And so they take him over there, bound up, and they get him close enough to the Philistines, and they go, here he is. And he gets close, and he bursts out with his ass bone jaw and smashes 1,000 of them to death. 1,000 people he murders with the jawbone of an ass.
Well, he was right.
1,000. Yeah. And as they're watching it, Ezekiel's like, well, we appear quite the fools. he really didn't need the sword and shield. And so after he's finished massacring 1,000 people dripping with blood, not like in movies like Braveheart or Predator where there's like drips of their own blood a little bit. I mean like half a second after you get out of the pool, that level of drippage in blood, there's a snail trail of all blood types smeared around this land. And he comes back up to them, and all the Jews are like, frankly, Samson, half an hour ago, we were ready to turn you in. Never before has there been such a political turn in an environment. Raise your hand if you don't want Samson to be in charge. Everyone wants you to be in charge, Samson. And so Samson, dripping with blood, decides he's going to be in charge. And so after that, though, he decides he needs a little more, just a touch more vengeance.
Like Christ. All they did was cheat on a riddle, for fuck's sake.
Dude, that's all throughout the Old Testament. They'll be like, and someone of the Ammonites stole a goat, and the Jewish Old Testament God is like, and he smote 50,000 of them for it. And it's insane. But now gets to the point that people are more familiar with. Samson and Delilah. So a little more time passes, and he falls head over heels for this lady Delilah, and she's a fox. Like they were like back in the day, they were the Brangelina of the day, and so it wasn't like a relationship. Everybody fucking knew Samson was plugging Delilah, and so the Philistines go to Delilah and are like, "Hey, you got to give us info on how he gets his strength, because we got to get rid of this. We're rightly looking for vengeance here. We've lost thousands of people to this madman. Look at that. We don't know where he is. We're whispering right now. He's terrifying." And so they basically convince her to be on like a little secret agent. And so she goes to him one night after they bang, and she goes, "Samson, what gives you all your strength?" And he goes, "Well, if they'd only known to tie my hands with 7 unused bowstrings, they would have never had that problem. I would have been as weak as any other man." And so during the night, she tied his hands with 4 unused bowstrings, woke up to, or 7 unused bowstrings, and the Philistines are there waiting, ready, anticipating picking him up, and he wakes up, bursts out, and murders a dozen or so of them. This time in self-defense, fair enough. Yeah. And then I guess they go back to bed being like, why I oughta, to Delilah. And then the next day, he tells her this rinse and repeat. Why would you lie to me last night? And he doesn't ask, why'd you try to have me murdered and captured? He just goes with it because he's an idiot. And he goes, all right, well, if you use like brand new rope, that'll get me. They've only ever used rope on me. That's why I can burst out. And so they do that. once again bursts out, and the 12 anticipating and terrified Philistines are
They're like, we know what happens here, guys. We didn't want to be here.
Oh, we're group 2? It's always group 3 or 4 that gets them. Like, and that's,
we saw what you did just now. I don't.
Oh,
The bodies are still here.
Samson, I told you to move them. And so he murders all of them. Then I guess Delilah once again gets off scot-free. The next day he tells her, if you braid my hair in this way, I'll be helpless. So she does that. The third group of a dozen or so Philistines stand up. He's like, I'm not even tied up this time. Wah, 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 wah. And it beats the shit out of him, kills him. And then finally she badgers him enough that he goes, my hair is the source of my strength. If you cut it off, I got nothing. Jesus Christ, will you shut the fuck up? Samson has terrible choice in women, but it's good to see some things never change. So the next day he's sleeping, or next evening he's sleeping. She snips his hair off. Then the Philistines come in, and he stands up to fight him, and he's just a normal dude now. He doesn't have his superpowers. God said, I'm only interested in lustrous locks. You know, that's all I'm in for. Mm-hmm. And so they come in, they pin him down, they immediately gouge his eyes out and blind him. And so he can't be a threat anymore. And then they drag him off and they give Delilah all sorts of sweets and spoils. And so then they take him blind and beaten and a regular man, and they put him on a grain mill where you're just like what they would use donkeys for. Like you're just pushing this thing around and around and around. And he does that for months. And I guess everybody forgot. Let's give this guy regular haircuts. Because a couple months later, there's a big Philistine celebration, much similar to when we caught Bin Laden. like everybody's like, yeah, we got him, yeah. Like they're all in this big, beautiful building. All the Philistines. There's 3,000 people on the roof, and all the elites underneath. And they say, "Bring out Samson! Bring him out! Bring out this murderer!" And they're jeering at him because everyone there has someone they know who's been murdered by this animal. And they put him up there, they throw stuff at him, and they go, get out of here. And he collapses. You know, his hair's gotten a little longer, though. And he stands up, still blind, and he goes, please let me lean up against a pillar. And so they put him up against a pillar to lean there. And he summons God and says, God, with my last act, please let me bring this down upon the Philistines. And so he puts one hand on one pillar, one hand on the other, and he uses his last bit of strength and collapses it and murders another 5,000 Philistines with his final breath.
Well,
and this is the story that I used to guide my entire life. In the words of Kyle. Yeah.
Seems just.
Yeah. Tucker wasn't a believer before that story.
No,
but now,
the first 5 minutes of that story, I was like, I'm bored. And then Samson, he really just kept going, huh?
I wonder if after about 7,000 murders, if he felt like he had gotten revenge for them cheating on the riddle yet.
I can't believe somebody would cheat on this riddle. Yeah, if there was ever a time to think, man, the Bible is... what a wonderful story that could be animated and made into. It's now. I want to see an animated Bible series.
That and Job.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, was it?
It was a movie, a live-action movie. I saw it.
I don't want a live-action.
I don't remember quite like that.
I want
Well,
Old
sorry,
Testament
that one took
animations.
so long, but I wanted to start from the birth.
You made up for it. You made up for it. It really came to fruition. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, and I hope you learned something.
I mean, I knew Samson is strong-ass dude and killed a lot of people, but I was unaware that he literally slaughtered thousands of people with the jaw of an ass, which is just not, like, out of all of the weapons that you could kill people with. That's wouldn't you get tired around 200, 250? You're like, damn, I got 750 more of these.
Yeah, it wasn't just physical strength. It was like that hair was given cardio points for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
100%.
I don't know what life lesson I'm supposed to take from that, but my wife cheated in Uno one time, and I feel like I've got some killing to do.
Kill her family!
But did you murder all of her Facebook friends?
Yeah, that's really
not yet.
But after that, to really good at, you got to murder the friends and people you may know of their friends.
She's not on Facebook. I'm
like the suggested follows on Twitter. You got to get them.
Thankfully, my wife is not on the internet at all. Really, she lives an offline life. So
must be nice.
Isn't that a great thing when you meet a girl and like you talk about internet stuff and they're like, yeah, I don't really do that as much. And you're like, oh, bless your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it because It means that the people who watch this show don't have a reach to her.
Yeah,
that's true too.
I bounce back and forth between I want you to be up to date with internet culture, but I don't want you to be the same level as me. Like I want to be able to show you my favorite memes and you can